we are going to be taking a deep dive into the strategies and leadership philosophies of the prominent industry leaders. To moderate this panel, or this masterclass, I'm going to welcome back Mr. Achin, Khanna, the Managing Partner, Strategic Advisory, Hotelivate, as the moderator. And joining him on stage will be Guy Hutchinson, the President of Middle East and Africa for Hilton, Mr. Haitham Mattar, who's the Managing Director, Middle East, Africa and Southwest Asia of IHG Hotels and Resorts, and Mr. Sandeep, Walia, Chief Operating Officer, Middle East and Luxury, Europe, Middle East and Africa for Marriott International. Please welcome them to the stage with a round of applause.
Now, thank you for those of you who have shown up. We're going to have, one would hope, one of the most interesting sessions of the day. It's the last one before we wrap up, and you have us and yourselves between now and cocktails. So let's jump right to it, shall we? Gentlemen, it's an honor and privilege to have you with us today. Thanks for taking the time. We're going to talk about a variety of things, and one is hopeful that the audience can draw some great value from it. To begin with, if we may just start from the top, it's highly unlikely that you're not already known in the room, but just for good measure, Haitham, would you take a minute and just give a quick introduction to the audience?
Of course, it's haitham.mattar@ihg.com.
Got it.
I know everybody here. They know me, right?
There you go, splendid. Sandeep.
Thank you. Before I start, can we all sing for Haitham? It's Haitham's birthday
Indeed.
today. So happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Haitham. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
So we don't often get to humiliate one of our colleagues on stage, so got to take the opportunity. Well done.
I'm Sandeep Walia, and I'm the CEO for Middle East for all brands and luxury for Europe, Middle East, and Africa.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, good evening. I'm Guy Hutchinson, and I'm the president for Hilton, looking after Middle East, Africa, Seychelles, and Mauritius.
Thank you. Gentlemen, we'll go to some specifics, but before we do that, I want to start with a broader question. The topic is the view from the top, and usually leaders have varied styles of operations, and I think we had a panel about it a couple of hours ago where we had a few other leaders from your colleagues from other organizations who spoke a little bit about their styles of leadership. And without getting too technical about it, what I wanted to do was request the three of you to maybe take a couple of minutes each and just try and share with the audience your views on the following, and I'll read it out for good measure. As you lead your respective organizations towards success, what are a few key lessons in leadership that you can share with the audience? Lessons that have helped you become the leaders that you are today, and perhaps are great sources of aspiration for the leaders of tomorrow, some of the youngsters or the up-and-coming leaders in the room. We'll start at the end of the room, Haitham.
Thank you. I think for me, perseverance and grit is what shaped me as a person throughout my career. And I always learned that only hard work is going to get you where you want to go, and passion. Working for the hospitality industry, you've got to have passion. If you don't have passion and be able to think that you're always going to be at the service of others, then hospitality is not for you. Being at service, whether it's your colleagues, or it's your team members, or it's your guests, or your owners, or stakeholders, or investors, and the perseverance to always, go through the challenges that we all face in our daily lives throughout this journey in hospitality, but also the hospitality has gone through so many challenges throughout the years that taught us all great lessons. COVID is one of them, but remember we had SARS, we had the Achin cloud, and we had the foot and mouth disease, and we had the financial crisis, and all of that, always had a huge impact on hospitality. But what we all learn is hospitality is so resilient we always get right back up. And that's the sort of leadership I think we have formed across our organization, at least. And I know the industry as a whole. I speak, for all of us. We've become extremely resilient and very strong in the face of challenges.
Yeah, I think first of all, it's a very short and sweet question, but I think the answer can be very long. It's a very, it needs to be situational leadership. It really depends on the situation and elaborate that you need to have a balance between being hands-on and being strategic, being on properties, meeting people, and being in the office and zoning out and looking at how the business is doing. And I don't think you can do one of the two. You need to kind of have a good balance. But I think if one had to say, similar to the last discussion, that what would be something which one is more focused on today in particular with how things are and how we are expanding as Marriott globally or within the region, I think there are two big things for us. One is having a whole enterprise value. We kind of just went through a whole reorg where we brought in all the different businesses together, whether it's managed or franchise. Yes, we have kept luxury separate, but also in certain ways brought it together. But it's to have that whole enterprise mindset, because I think a lot of times what happens is we look at the board level, it's all aligned. At the C-suite level, it's all aligned. But it's the disciplines which could go into a bit of silo. So I think that to be brought together, that enterprise mindset is important. And the second very big thing, which I joined Marriott 20 years back. And we were talking then about empowerment. We're talking about empowerment 5 years back when we were talking about a Vision 2025. We were talking about empowerment yesterday, and we're talking about it today. But I think the empowerment is working a lot this way. I don't think I can go to my boss and say, empower me on two things more. I don't think I would find anything. He would say, well, go ahead and decide. And I think the same thing would be true for the vice president to report into me from different disciplines or operations. But I think there's a lot of empowerment required across different disciplines, and that's going to be important too. So I think empowering our people is going to become more important. It's a very people-centric business. If we don't look after our people and let them grow, so a big part of growth is going to be, or a big part of the culture is going to be letting them do what they need to do, including our general managers on property to let them do and not come on the way. End of the day, GMs make or break a hotel. We can all three be sitting respectively and talking about culture, but if it is not getting implemented in the hotels, it's not going to happen. So the GMs need to be empowered more and let them run with the business.
Thank you. Insightful. And Guy, your thoughts on the same, please.
I think if you drill it down to sort of personal leadership and the framework that I think is critical to that, I'd probably break it into sort of three separate spaces. First, and probably more important, double down on talent. Great results come from great people doing great things and giving them the will, the confidence to reach for potential that they might not think that they have. So double down on talent. Second thing for me is stay humble, stay grounded. Staying humble means you never put yourself in front of a guest or a colleague. Grounded for me means that you create very precise, very concise data streams and feeds of information so that you have a very clear, unobliterated picture of what is working in the business and what levers are required to make that business accelerate. Third, give attention and energy to structure and strategy. You got to deliver, you got to be consistent in delivering that sense of purpose, that sense of direction, and always being able to lift up from the day to day and be the individual that is driving value, that's driving strategy, and that's driving that direction. I think when you pull all those three things together, that those fundamentals, no matter where you work, even culturally, they translate into the ability to deliver high-performing teams. And when you look at organizations like the scale that we operate, it's not about who you are as an individual. It's about the value you can create through building and driving high-performing teams. And then there's a personal motto. And one thing which has always stuck with me, when I started very early in my career, somebody said to me, there's a huge difference between 10 years of experience and 1 year of experience repeated 10 times. You know, and that's always stayed with me. So keep learning, stay open-minded, make sure you are always moving forward as an individual.
Well said. And gentlemen, we'll come back to the thoughts and the topic of leadership closer towards the end of our discussion. But before we do that, let's jump into some specifics, some matters which are more regional in nature. Guy, I'll start with you this time. Quick 1-minute overview, if you wouldn't mind, on the regions you cover, the number of hotels reporting into you, what's the pipeline looking like, just the lay of the land, if you will, please.
I think the 10-second answer to that is we're blessed. You know, I think my colleagues, I'm sure, will echo the same sentiment that, you know, as an industry, we are today based in what is the most dynamic, I think, region in the world in terms of hospitality and the way that hospitality is developing. We've got countries like the UAE, like Saudi Arabia, where a national economic strategy is based around the development of the tourism industry, Egypt as well. And that's very unique in the world. You know, so I think we're absolutely blessed where we are in terms of how this industry is growing, how this industry is developing. You know, our portfolio today is just north of 360 hotels across 24 brands. High pockets of growth. UAE is definitely still at the heart of what we do. It's still a powerhouse in the region. Saudi Arabia, of course, is on everybody's radar, and today 1 in 4 hotel rooms under construction in Saudi Arabia is under one of our brands. But Egypt, Morocco, Egypt definitely high growth. Morocco with the World Cup coming, super pipeline out of Morocco. But I think if you look at how industry is developing, you know, we are probably fortunate and privileged to be sitting and giving guidance to regions which are probably the fastest growing, or in percentage terms, certainly the fastest growing regions in all of our respective organizations.
Thank you. Sandeep, would you share yours as well?
Yeah, sure. I think I'll kind of I'll go with the 3 hats I wear. So I'll start with the Middle East, which I couldn't agree with Guy more. We are blessed to be in this part of the world and the way the growth has been. I think it's coming together of the governments and the private sector. It's about the safety and security, besides all kind of perceptions in different markets about Middle East. But I think it's a great momentum. We today have about 255 open hotels across Middle East, and about 150 in the pipeline, which clearly shows how much of growth is coming. 3 big markets for us clearly are UAE, Saudi, and Turkey. And these are the 300 hotel markets for us. So we are today about 82 open hotels in UAE, and Dubai itself is 56 out of that, in different brands that we have, moving from the Bulgari to the select brands that we have in the over 31 brands. The second market is clearly Turkey for us, which is about 60 open, 41 in the pipeline, so another 100 hotel market. And the third, but certainly not the least, is Saudi, where if I had to say 2 out of every 4, you'll be left for 1 out of 4. But I'm not too sure 1 out of how many, but we have about 44 open and a similar number signed. So I'm confident we'll cross the 100 mark by the year this end. But I think what's been great is also been first with the Fuse in Saudi. So we opened the Ritz-Carlton Reserve in St. Regis in Red Sea, which was the first. We opened the luxury collection in Diriyah recently, which has been exciting too. So a lot of growth in Middle East. The second bucket, the hat which I wear is of luxury, which is for Europe, Middle East, Africa, which is today about 160 hotels. And again, a huge amount of growth. We have 65 in the pipeline. If you look at globally, we are about 600 open hotels in luxury. And I think it's wrong to say we are the largest, and luxury don't really go well together, but at the cost of saying it for a minute, it will be the largest luxury hotel company with the 8 brands that we have globally. So a good growth in luxury. We continue to see the demand grow even in other parts of the world with luxury, especially because a lot of the luxury is in the leisure space. We had good growth in Saudi last year for luxury, but this year is more of a bit of an Italy year as well. So we have edition coming in Lake Como. We have W Florence, W in Sardinia, and a bit of a growth with St. Regis's and Ritz-Carlton too. So that's kind of the luxury hat. And the third, certainly not the least, is the residences, which is the third hat aware for Europe, Middle East, Africa, which is an amazing growth story. Again, the branded residences, more in the luxury space, but the premium for developers have ranged from a matured market like Dubai from 25% to, if you start going into East Europe, I think some of the premium has been about 150%, which is another level. So I think it's great for developers to be looking at it and the speed at which branded residences are selling. So we have about 60 units today, which are going to double in the next few years.
You want to hold on to that thought on the residences. I'm going to come to you on that for some more. But thank you, Sandeep. Haitham, over to you.
Thank you. So I think I'm the only one on stage who's worked for Marriott, Hilton, and IHG. So I know a little bit more on them than they know on me. And everything they told you is not true.
Every word is true.
So look, it's I've got also, as you say, we're blessed. I'm blessed with a great region with Middle East Africa, which a region I've been familiar with for many years. But also, the new addition to me is the Southwest Asia region, which has Seychelles and Mauritius, but also has Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and India. And growth markets for us globally are India, Saudi Arabia, but also the UAE, which is a great captive market still, with a lot of hotels exchanging hands, as we see, and also conversions, but also independent brands now looking for international operators. So there's a lot of room for growth for all of us, not just IHG, but for all of us. And Saudi, I think, Saudi is a huge playground for everyone. We're really enjoying that growth story in Saudi, the opportunity to bring in new brands, but also grow our existing brands across the two holy cities, but also in Riyadh and Jeddah. And there's a lot of development going into the tertiary cities, but we're also one of the first to enter Saudi in 1975 with the Intercontinental Bride. So there's a huge brand affinity amongst the Saudis, if you like, and we have over 50 hotels operating. I've got about 220 hotels in my region, so just short of Sandeep's regions in terms of number of operating hotels. We've got about 180 in the pipeline across the entire region. So with India, we're sort of doubling our number of hotels in the next 3 to 5 years, with another 55 in the pipeline. And also in Saudi Arabia, we're also doubling our number of hotels there. Big box hotels in the two holy cities, but also, as I mentioned, Riyadh, Jeddah, and some of the resort areas, if you like, and tertiary, secondary cities. The growth opportunities in the region are similar to all of us. I think we're all sort of focusing our energy and growth in these similar markets. And like I said, there's room for everyone there. So we've got what we call healthy competition. We the three of us, actually the four of us with Duncan, I don't know where he is, we sort of have continuous dialogue about, where are you going and what are the opportunities out there. And we've got, brands that either compete or some of them actually complement. So when I look at Hilton's brands versus IHG, they're very similar. I think Marriott is blessed with many more brands and a huge diversity in your brands. And we're making market entries now with our Garner, which is a new brand that's been created to sort of mid-scale, and also the Holiday Inn and Holiday Express. They remain to be sort of our bread and butter, if you like, for the company. Out of the 6,000 hotels, over 4,500 hotels are actually in the Holiday Inn, Holiday Express, especially in the U.S. The company is predominantly franchise. 80% of our estate is franchise. Our franchise community is growing in this part of the world. We've got Amit here, who heads up franchise for us in the region, and he's got about 60 hotels now in franchise out of the 220, and we're seeing much more demand in that space, and I'm sure Sandeep and Guy are facing the same, where many owners are now really looking at franchise, and we're encouraging third-party operators, people we're familiar with, we would trust with our brands, especially with new hotel owners who want to venture into the franchise world, and instead of blocking them or locking them out, we want them to consider a third-party operator who have the expertise in operating diverse and multi-brands, and we would trust them with those brands as well. So I think, again, the region is we've had a great year. We've got, probably like my colleagues, we've had a record year again this year, and that's been an opportunity for our company globally to have us sort of plug gaps from other regions because of the growth opportunities, whether it's trading or whether it's growth across the world.
Thank you. I'm going to pick up on something Sandeep touched on, and I think it's probably one of the most pertinent and discussed topics in the region specifically, which is the branded residences. And perhaps let's start with you, Sandeep, and then we'll request Guy and Haitham to jump in. It's clearly a model that has caught the attention of the owner and investor community in Middle East specifically. And I just want to understand from Marriott's standpoint, how do you see this trend evolving? There's been a good amount of success already that's been had here. And do you think that there may be a point where there's more branded residences than needs for them, or are we far away from that?
Right. I think, first of all, just to kind of put it into three categories, right? I think I don't need to state it, but just at the cost of stating the obvious. So there are three kind of business models we have in residences. One is, first of all, standalone and co-located. In the co-located, it's two once again. It's either a owner is kind of getting into, or a buyer is getting into buying a unit which goes back into the inventory, and you get a certain weeks kind of to stay in that particular hotel. The second is, of course, the fact that you sell the unit, like we have a W Palm right here, where you're staying in your own residence that you bought, and you can't put it back into the hotel rental, or you can't do an Airbnb. So there are three different models. I think the one which you started to see, first we always used to do only co-located, because we felt it's easier to service the residents from a hotel, because most of the branded residences started in the luxury space. Our biggest number of residences, if I look at the market, I look after Europe, Middle East, Africa, is with Ritz-Carlton, followed by St. Regis. It's now that we have started to see lifestyle residences do well as well. So whether it's W, some of the additions which are coming up in the market have addition residences. But interestingly, we recently did a deal where we're looking at a Moxie residence. So people are getting into premium and select branded residences as well. So that's an interesting thing which we are seeing. The second is this whole concept of independent standing units. For example, we did one with Emaar, with St. Regis Residences in downtown, and it did really well. We are seeing more of growth of that, because I think there, the business model is helping almost everybody. So let's look at the developer. The developer is able to sell faster, gets a premium, whether it's 25% to 150, depending on the market. And you're right, it's more Middle East, but it's starting to get a lot into Greece and Spain as well, in terms of a growth. It sells faster, so you're getting a premium, so that helps them. It helps us because we are able to expand our brand, and let's be honest, for all three of us, and for Duncan for that matter, a lot of times we run into issues of territorials. I mean, residences don't come with territorials, so it's a bit different. You can't overdo them, but it's not conflicting with the hotel model. So I think that's where we are benefiting, and of course the fees, which is a core of it. And for the people who are buying, they're able to stay in a space which they like. So they like to travel and stay in a Ritz-Carlton or a St. Regis or a W, or a Bulgari for that matter, which has done amazingly well here in Dubai as well. In fact, the next three Bulgaris all have residences as well. So it's in all levels, but they're staying in a style of a hotel they would like to stay. So I think it benefits everybody.
Indeed, and if I may, before I ask you to add to this, Guy, the couple of other benefits that accrue as well is for those of the owners who put this back in the rental pool, there's a yield to be had. And one would imagine the brands benefit as well from a fee structure that is always welcome. So yeah, happiness all around. But Guy, how does Hilton look at this?
Yeah, honestly, I think would echo a lot of that sentiment. You know, it is becoming a really important model on many levels. It's definitely a fast-growing segment. I think we're far away from actually reaching anywhere near its peak. I think if you read research, and I had a piece in my hand just last week, where demand for branded residence is expected to more than double in the next 5 to 10 years. Dubai is still the center of the universe to a degree. There's 140 projects actually in branded residence is coming out of the ground between now and the next 5 or 10 years. You know, it's something that absolutely works, and it works on many levels. You know, and for us talking to the models, you know, we have a standalone Waldorf Astoria residences coming here in Dubai, and how that works for a developer in terms of the premiums they're able to drive. So it's a win-win for all parties. The mixed use is, particularly in the luxury end, and still 50 to 60% of everything that's been done globally in a branded residence space is in luxury, because of course it drives a higher premium. But equally, if you take an example like our Waldorf Astoria in New York, the mothership, you know, the greatest of them all, you know, that went from a 1,000-key hotel, and it reopens this year in October as a 300-key ultra-luxury property in New York with branded residences. And what that does for a developer, it smooths the cash flow. So either you're building or renovating or structuring, you know, to have, particularly to be able to develop a luxury hotel and what goes into that and the cost per key that goes into building a luxury hotel, having that combination of branded residence together with that, it's a really supportive financial structure that facilitates the whole development, and it evens out the cash flows in terms of how you are able to develop the hotel. It takes pressure off us as an operator, because the branded residents provide us a really strong source of funding. And what comes out the other side is you're able then to develop luxury hotels that are absolutely done in that sort of minute detail of precision that you need in luxury. So there are multiple advantages in terms of how this model works, whether it's standalone, whether it's mixed use across the brands. It's a really important part of the portfolio, and we definitely don't see that tapping out anytime soon. It's just beginning.
Quick follow-up for you, Guy, before I move to Haitham. Like Sandeep, would you also be offering this across the board? In other words, are you doing select service and lifestyle brands as well?
Yes, and we have products which sit in that space. There is less traction because right now developer focus has been very much in that luxury space because the premiums are higher. But in some markets, particularly, for example, in some African markets, we're actually seeing that as a product across Garden Inn, for example, you know, where there's an opportunity. So, but in prime cities like Dubai or prime real estate in Dubai, luxury is still driving the highest premium for a developer.
To know. Haitham?
I mean, I think Marriott's probably more mature in the branded residence space than we are. And you know, I don't want to add more to what Guy and Sandeep have elaborated on the branded residences, but our take on that is there's a huge demand for branded residences. We are just doing baby steps and learning the markets and the ropes as we go with the demand that's coming across. So Sean is here. He signed his first branded residences in the luxury space here in Dubai, our first Regent branded residences. And he's working on a couple other deals, but we also have deals that are now coming up in Saudi Arabia with a new law. Egypt, there's room there, but it's also the laws are quite tricky when it comes to branded residences. And also, similar to Marriott and Hilton, you know, being a US company, there's a lot of formalities, and you've got to be very cautious about, you know, the condo schemes and, you know, what have you, and what gets sold and who does it get sold to and how does it come back into the rental pool. So there's a lot of learnings for us, at least, as we go through the market. And the demand is huge. Obviously, you know, like Guy mentioned, there's huge premium. It goes, you know, up to 20 or 25% premium on property, depending on brand. But we're seeing more demand on luxury and premium. So, you know, people are not interested in, you know, any of the other mid-scale brands to do branded residences because they see the premium in the luxury space. Urson here heads up my branded residences for the region, and I think he did a study a couple of years back, and there's about 40 plus branded residences in Dubai and probably another 40 in the pipeline from what you had. We got one, out of those. So you could tell that the room for growth is there, the opportunities are there. We're seeing much more demand on that from owners across the region. Now, pretty soon, Brad said Residences, we'll be talking about that for India, and then I know that's going to be a hot market. And we're making entry into, with our luxury brands in hotels in India, and I'm pretty sure that's going to start to come up. But there's a lot of money to be made for owners, for buyers as well. You're buying a property with a brand. It's only going to give you premium throughout the years.
Thank you. Gentlemen, the other possibly equally interesting space, buzzwords, if I can call them that, one of them has been lifestyle, the other one's been experiential. You hear these words again and again. Gaurav Bhushan was on the stage just before us talking about Ennismore, I'm sure. And all major hotel companies, including the three of you gentlemen on stage today, have some very enviable lifestyle brands. And there is this intent to cater to the Gen Z and the millennial and the Gen Alpha audience now as they grow into adults or young adults. Where do you see that space going? Which of your brands do you see most promising? I mean, Canopy is interesting, Tribute's interesting, Voco is interesting. There's a lot of good stuff happening in that space. Guy, we'll start with you.
Yeah, certainly. And Nomad, which is also now part of our stable, lifestyle is absolutely a critical part of the growth strategies. And when you enter, destinations, and Saudi Arabia, not to constantly talk about Saudi Arabia, but Saudi Arabia is a good example. It's the youngest population on earth. 60% of the population of Saudi is under 30 years old. So lifestyle as a category is something which really hits home. So being able to provide those experiences, and there's differences. I think there's a subtle difference between experiential and lifestyle. They're not necessarily exactly the same thing, because luxury also plays heavily into experiential. So experiential covers sort of multiple brands. But lifestyle and lifestyle component, huge part. And we have Nomad, Canopy, Tapestry. So we have multiple brands that are catering to lifestyle across also different segments. So it's available to travelers with different budgets. Super important. I think it's something that you will see grow very strongly across the region. I think Saudi Arabia is skipping the queue. They're not going through that journey of focus service, full service lifestyle that some of more mature destinations are. They're going straight in with a very high content of lifestyle. But equally, in more mature markets like the UAE, we're seeing very strong demand equally for lifestyle. As the demographic and the number of travelers into these destinations grow. So it's an extremely important part of all of our growth strategies, for sure.
Thank you. Sandeep.
Yeah, I think, the trend of moving from product to experiences started pre-COVID. First of all, great to be saying pre and post-COVID, but post-COVID, in fact, during COVID, it started already to move into people spending more on experiences versus product. And here we are. I think the trend continues. It's the third year or fourth year now in a row that we continue to see people traveling more. But as easy as it is becoming to travel from point A to point B, I think equally difficult it's getting to wow a guest from that point A to B. So for example, if Haitham came to one of the Ritz-Carltons to have an experiential stay, he would be wowed the first time with one thing which the hotel team would do, but the next time he comes again, the same thing is the least expected. It's no more a wow, it's no more experiential. So I think that's kind of making, the more people are traveling, the more expectations are rising, and therefore more we need to focus on that. And I think I see one of the questions there. But I mean, if you really look at it, our industry really started with innkeeping, where people used to travel. There were no mobile phones, there were no emails, and you would reach the end of the day and stop in somebody's home. The husband and wife would welcome you home, have a great conversation, hot meal, clean bed, hot shower, and off you went the next day. But it was from the heart, it was experiential, it was fun, it was conversations. And I think we need to treat each hotel where each GM is more the host of that hotel too. We recently did a survey with our Marriott Bonvoy members. Today we have about 220 million plus Marriott Bonvoy members. Now, if you look at it, it's the population of UK, Germany, Italy, and another European country. So a huge database. And what they're talking about is the fact that 80% of them, we just did the survey, and in fact, we came out with the findings just yesterday. 80% of them said they'll repeat the number of visits they did for leisure. Now, I'm not even talking about our business hotels, I'm talking leisure right now. And they said they would make at least 7 trips a year. Now, it could be within their country or externally, shorter or longer routes. But all that leads to that experiential business you're talking. But I think every brand is into that as well. We often mix up leisure and experiential and forget the business. I think we need to do both, because today, if you look at the guest comments, some of the business hotels talks about, oh, there is no spa. And some of the resorts has a thing about Wi-Fi. So it's kind of it's cross-pollinated. So I think it's for all brands.
Thank you. And Haitham, there's more than a few lifestyle brands.
Yeah,
in your
look, I mean, I'm going to pick on what he said last, the spa. And I think, if you were to take 5 people in a room, and I think of sustainability and I think of lifestyle, and you ask them to define either, you're going to get 5 different answers. And the same with lifestyle. I think the definition of lifestyle really depends on how people perceive lifestyle and what is it they're looking for in a lifestyle experience. But Sandeep ended by talking about spas, and I think that the future trends are more towards wellness. And there might be, a certain, I don't want to call it confusion, but it's probably a misunderstanding of what consumers want today, and they call lifestyle versus wellness, because sometimes you see a beautiful salad and you think, oh, lifestyle, because I can take a picture and stick it on Instagram, when you're actually thinking farm to table and you're thinking wellness, right? So I think the lifestyle brands we have, whether it's Kimpton or Hotel Indigo, we're starting to morph into offering experiences. You mentioned earlier about experiences, and Sandeep alluded to, the post-COVID people were looking for experiences. A lot of consultants, surveys, studies, whether by hotel operators or by airlines or tour operators, it shows that people want to pay more for experiences, but then also people want to pay more for wellness. And we saw in our studies, the Intercontinental conducted a study, the brand, and it showed that people are willing to pay 30% more for experiences, whether it's gastronomic experiences, whether it's connecting with culture and heritage, whether it's visiting historical sites, whether it's sports, and whether it's wellness, and learning about the people for the city that they are visiting. So it's no longer transactional, where people want to go to a hotel and stay in the room, or perhaps hang out by the beach. There's a lot more to that. And the thing you mentioned something earlier about what is the young generation looking for, right? I always think, is the future design of a hotel going to have TVs? Because my kids don't use a TV. They don't ever touch the TV. Is never on. But everything is on their laptop, right? It's either Netflix or on their iPad. So will we have hotels in the future that have TVs? Or will that be a huge cost saving for the hotel? And do you replace that with something else that this next generation is using? We know, we mentioned Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is like water. You must have Wi-Fi, just like you have hot water and cold water in your room. And it's a basic standard that everybody expects. It's an expectation. We traveled to Namibia not too long ago, and the country didn't have a collaboration with any other telecom company. So none of our phones, would pick up signal. And I tell you, for the 4 days we were there, we felt that we were just out of touch. And you think, wait a minute, how did we go back in time? I mean, it was a relief that our emails were not popping, but you realize you were sort of disconnected from the world, and that's a mandatory requirement where people need to be connected. Now, is that wellness? No, it's not. It's not. But it's a mandatory requirement. So there's a mixed bag of ideas that I think people of the next generation are looking for. They're definitely not looking for the traditional hotel stays. But I don't think any of us are yet able to crack what does the hotel of the future look like, really. And we talk about digitization and seamless and touchless, but we talk about high tech and high touch, and You know, are we actually going to, the next generation, do they really want to go through a hotel that has, you know, soulless, like no people whatsoever? There's going to be a lot of digitization, but is that the future? I'm not sure.
Okay, we've got very limited time, and I want to take a few of the audience questions. If you'll put them up here. Let's pick up from what Haitham was saying, the last one there. With such strong brand legacies, and all of you have that, how do you balance maintaining traditionals with innovating to meet the modern traveler expectations? It's a very fine balance, Guy.
I'll answer that one because actually it speaks to something which is a principle of my own. You know, there's times where I talk to our teams and go, you know, the only constant is change, right? So, you know, and hotels, I mean, we've been around for more than 100 years. So, you know, Hilton was the first to introduce room service. And Hilton was the first to introduce televisions into hotel rooms. Maybe we will take them out. You know, the beauty of our business is its agility, because it's a business which, yes, there's a physical component around it, but it's not like manufacturing an iPhone that, you know, 18 months later, there's a newer updated model. Hospitality is driven by human experience. The vehicle through which you express that human experience can change. It can have a digital component to it. People went from horses to cars. You know, people went from hotel rooms that didn't have a bathroom to hotel rooms with ensuite bathrooms. You know, there's hotels that are out there in the world, and that's what I love about our business. There are hotels that are 150 years old, but are relevant today. Not just relevant, but leading their markets today. And they've been existent for 150 years. Why? Because it's the expression of hospitality. It is the people component that keeps those hotels relevant. So it's how you adapt your service, how you adapt your human component. And in a way, you almost adapt naturally, because as your teams come through those hotels, they're faster adopters of technology and digital integration than necessarily we are. But they're still the front line serving the guest. So you've got a natural adaptation as you go through generations. And I think the focus is, yes, the physical component. I always tell my teams also, you know, you can sit in the most beautiful hotel room in the world and hate that experience. Why? Because the soft components of service and quality and people and emotion and genuine and authenticity in service are just not there. So when you crack that and that evolves, your hotels will always stay relevant. No matter how old your brand is, sometimes it actually works in your favor.
Thank you. I'm going to, unless Sandeep, you want to add to that, I was
just taking the next question.
Please do.
Like, I think I'll go on the brand's focus for next year. More than brands, I'll substitute that with the company focus. But besides what we've already spoken about luxury, about residences, I think the overarching focus certainly will be people, back to the culture piece of it. End of the day, for us as Marriott, we are still a family company. The chairman of the board and the company is David Marriott. So the family is still involved, and that's the whole culture of putting people first, and that's going to continue, and we have different ways in which we're going to do that. But in terms of the business as such, we are going to see a lot of verticals come out and stretch the total spend that we get from our guests. So for example, with the Ritz-Carlton brand, we went into yachts. We have 2 yachts already sailing for the last 3 years. We have the 3rd one coming. So that's one brand extension. We went into Ritz-Carlton with Reserve, which was kind of the competition to the high net worth individuals that are spending more. But the other piece which we'll start to announce, in fact, as early as later part of this month, would be more into tented camps and resorts in Kenya and Tanzania, which is growing in a big way. So we opened the JW Masai Mara, which has been a splendid success. So with that, we are going with 3 brands, with Ritz-Carlton Luxury Collection and continuing with JW into the tented camp business as well. And to Haitham's point, I think we want to look at more on the wellness space. And wellness not being spa to what you said. It's longevity, it's that whole more wellness piece, which we feel we need to get into more. So that would certainly be another focus for us.
Thanks. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the things I wanted to do was put Haitham on the spot for the 2nd time today. Not only is it his birthday, but I'm going to let the cat out of the bag, Haitham. Haitham is going to be releasing a book later this week, and the book launch is scheduled shortly. Haitham, would you share maybe for a couple of minutes what the book's all about and what are you proposing to
I
release?
see there's a little birdie telling you too many things.
Later, I want to also ask him, when did he get the time to write the book?
First question on my mind also.
On flights. Look, it's taken me a little over a year and some months to finish the book, and that was something I've been wanting to do for many years. The book's title is Pots, Pans, and 5-Year Plans. It's my journey from dishwasher to CEO. The whole objective of the book is to inspire the young generation to continue to aspire for career opportunities in the hospitality and tourism industry. I'm sharing my experiences of failure, my experiences of success, accomplishments, learnings as well, the ups and downs. I'm sharing also personal stuff. Me leaving Lebanon in 1975 when I was 5 years old, so everybody knows how old I am now. But also, the whole migrating to the U.S., going through hardship, working in the first job as a dishwasher in one of the busiest restaurants, telling my mother I washed more dishes that day than she did all her life. May she rest in peace. And the passing of my mother, which had a real impact on me personally at a young age of 25 years old. But also, obviously, moving from IHG to Hilton to Marriott is where I started. The Courtyard by Marriott on Delk Road in Atlanta was my first job as a dishwasher. But also moving into tourism, being an advisor to the Minister of Tourism in Saudi Arabia, Ras Al Khaimah also, having the opportunity to work with designers on destination, and also obviously now with ISG. So I did a sort of a full circle, 11 years with ISG, left for 11 years and then came back to ISG, which was always a dream job for me, to be honest with you. This is exactly what I wanted to do. I love exactly what I'm doing. And I see the war for talent. I see that we all struggle to find talent who are passionate about our industry. I said before, you got to love what you do. You've got to love being of service to others. You've got to understand that this is not a job, it's a lifestyle. I was sharing with my colleagues, phone calls from a certain investor at midnight. Now, I go to bed at 9:30. At 10 o'clock, I'm gone, right? So he's calling me at midnight, but then I call him the next morning. He's asleep, obviously. But it's, we're sort of on demand. You're 24/7. You've got to be available. People expect you to be there. He's calling me at midnight because he expects me to answer, right? This is how it goes. And the young generation is, my son, who's 22 years old, he's now doing his master's at Berkeley. Very proud of him, by the way. He's doing artificial intelligence. But I gave him an opportunity to do some training at the Willard Intercontinental in Washington, D.C. He did 2 days. He said, I'm not going to do standing on my feet for 8 hours. Forget it, right? So he left. That wasn't something he was ever going to do. So you imagine this generation who thinks, I don't want to be serving anybody. I want to be served. Now, so the objective is really to encourage people to think about this beautiful industry that we work in. And I've had so many opportunities and learning from others and times of difficulty, times where I've had to step back and then opportunities that presented themselves for me to be where I am today. So there's a lot of learnings, a lot of, and I'm excited about this book. I'm going to be on Dubai Eye for those who like to tune in on Monday at 7:30 to be the first discussion on the book. And I'm hoping I could be of service to people who read it.
Many congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
While it says time's up, I don't want to leave us without asking this one light-hearted question at the end. Guy, I'll begin with you. Creative hats on. If you could invite any one historical figure, any time in history, any person in the past, to your hotel, to one of your hotels as a guest, who would that be and why?
Honestly, I don't look at the past.
Okay, let's go to the future.
I wouldn't look at somebody from the past. I would look at somebody who can help me with the future.
Okay.
And it sounds a little bit on brand, but it's not. It's true. John Gray, who's the president of Blackstone, and happens to be also the chairman of Hilton. I had the privilege to have dinner with him in November last year. I learned more in 45 minutes, geopolitical, economic development, growth. I learned more in 45 minutes on dinner with John Gray than I probably learned in 2 years. If I had the opportunity, I'd sit him down again one more time just to listen to what he has to say.
There you go. It's upfront and honest, and that makes sense. Perfect. Sandeep.
I would go for Michael Jackson because that's where my career started, and I was.
You were a dancer?
No, I wasn't. I was in Butlers when I started in this career, and he was the first celebrity I looked after. So special memories, and love his music. So Michael Jackson.
Lovely. Thanks.
Can I bring two?
Please.
I'd bring back Nelson Mandela, and that's because Nelson said, to lead is to be of service to others, and I think this is the whole essence of our industry. But also I'd bring back Mahatma Gandhi, and I think the reason I'd bring back Mahatma Gandhi is because he'd bring peace to the industry. Yeah, he'd bring the spiritual belief of being of service to others as well. I think this is what our industry is all about. It's about being of service to others. And I think if I really would have any learnings, would be from those two leaders that really shaped not only history, but shaped our future.
Well, on that lovely note, gentlemen, it's been such a pleasure to moderate your panel. Thank you for taking the time. And thank you, audience.
Thank you so much.